What it do, what it do, what it do. I'm back. ArD tone with another reaction. Today we got, could DIO beat Sukuna from the Shibuya incident arc? Ooh, that's a good one. You know, me as a biased DIO fan, maybe his number one fan, a part of me want to say yes, he could, but realistically, I'm gonna say I'm kind of 50-50. I'm leaning between yes, no. Cause Sukuna, that boy a dog. So that's a tough one. I'm just interested in what he's gonna say about this. I'm not gonna really just count neither one of them out, but I would like to know what y'all would think in the comments. Let me know. Let me know.
In his stand, The World, against Sukuna in the Shibuya incident arc. I typically cover JoJo, and Dio is usually a very capable character against many fictional
That boy
characters,
a
but the
dog.
fight against Sukuna isn't as simple as most would think. He's the king of curses for a reason. Well, first, let's cover Dio's strengths. We get Dio's levels of power by pulling from phantom blood to an extent and comparing him to Jotaro's levels of power. With Dio being
Only thing I'm gonna say, I don't think he's fast enough. That's the only thing I'm gonna say. Like when it comes to speed, DIO really don't got that. So that's why I'm like, kind of iffy 50-50.
stronger than Tarkus, who splits hills casually, and Jonathan, Dio's base level varies, but suppose we factor in the scaling from this calculation about the sun created by the creator, Jabber Gadot. And in this case, Dio's strength ranges from being able to easily clear out buildings to being at the level required to level a mountain. In terms of speed, stands for the most parts in parts 3 through 6 fight at the speed of light and massively from it, at least. With Dio's stand, The World, and stands like Star Platinum both move massively faster than the speed of light. Now, this speed usually ends most fights against these other fictional characters, and his durability is comparable to his attack power as usual. And while he does have regeneration, it's not the same as it once was, because significant injuries require him to drink a good amount of blood to be able to repair himself. That is an important thing to keep track of here. And finally, there's the one large ability that Dio is going to use over everything else that he's potentially capable of, and that's the power to stop time for 5 seconds, at least in this position right now. And with light speed combat, you can imagine that he's capable of a lot in just 5 seconds. Now, while he has the ability to stop time, and that's at a universal range, he has an effective manifestation range of about 10 meters. And this will be important later on. The next character we have up for showcase is the King of Curses himself, Sukuna. Sukuna's raw
Dog.
power is significant, easily surpassing the majority of the beings in the franchise, and even in this form, his attack potency ranges from devastating single buildings to destroying city blocks with ease, scaling from his various fights and feats in this specific arc. Between this should be fairly similar to Dio, and I guess this specific form of Sukuna. We could have to talk about the later one. Now, the strength part isn't what makes this battle what it is, though. As to where to put this strength directly, it's a bit difficult, but we'll be able to explain that once we get into the abilities, because that's the important part here. Now, in terms of speed, JJK characters most likely don't reach anything close to the speed of light. Sukuna has subsonic speeds, but it does improve in later arcs, but still, it's not comparable whatsoever. Sukuna's durability is relatively comparable to his attack potency, but with the combination of his immeasurable amount of cursed energy and incomparable use of the reverse curse technique, trying to kill him is damn near impossible. Now, we know that he can exist without a heart, but without a brain, it's a completely different thing. So it's something to consider later on. Now for his abilities, firstly, there's Cleave. Cleave is a curse technique that allows Sukuna to slash at his enemies with an immense force. Now the power of Cleave depends on the amount of curse energy that Sukuna channels into it. Now, this ability itself is highly adaptable. Sukuna can adjust its strength based on what he perceives as necessary to defeat his opponent. That's a large thing to consider. It's capable of causing severe damage even to significantly durable opponents. Now, second, you have Dismantle. Dismantle is Sukuna's innate curse technique, allowing him to dissect or destroy anything he perceives as inferior to himself. This ability is primarily used in close combat. It's effective for dissecting curses or enemies or just inanimate objects in general. And Sukuna can effortlessly slice through just most materials and beings with it. Finally, there's his domain expansion known as Malevolent Shrine. Unlike the typical...
The thing is, if Dio get hit with that, can he really escape that? That's why I'm on the fence. I'm like, I don't really know.
Typical domain expansions that create a separate space or barrier. Malevolent Shrine expands the guaranteed hit radius of Sukuna's attacks. It extends the effective radius of Sukuna's attacks to nearly 200 meters. Now, within this range, Sukuna can use Cleave and Dismantle relentlessly. In this domain, Sukuna's attacks become automatic and are almost guaranteed to hit their target. The technique significantly enhances the lethality of his attacks, making evasion extremely difficult. Now let's approach this versus in theory. In their assessment stage, they'll be sizing each other up, but as soon as they start fighting, it'll be apparent that Dio is just largely faster than Sukuna, and that Sukuna's advanced fighting skills won't do him that.
Yeah, I guess I'll take that back. I mean, shit. I guess he got the speed, but I mean, is that really enough though?
Well, in a situation like this, Dio testing his durability and going for significant blows here and there, he'd be able to acknowledge that Sukuna is a fairly strong character. So after this, with neither of them suffering anything major, Dio especially, Dio might want to cut this battle short by punching Sukuna through the chest, and then Sukuna would regenerate it back to normal because that isn't enough to destroy this character. This is where the battle chooses to turn for the worst for at least one of them. Dio can stop time and chop Sukuna at the neck because he's a vampire, so he knows how to get around regeneration. Or Sukuna can activate his domain expansion and potentially end Dio's run right here. As for how these characters can work around these conditions, I don't think Sukuna and Yuji's body can continue with his head being removed from his body, or if the brain is completely destroyed. It's one of the reasons why people don't try to fight Yuji in that thing like that, because it would end up destroying Yuji in the process. Now why is this? In this form, or really any, Sukuna is not someone like Jogo. I think since Sukuna had originally been human, maybe that's the reason why a decapitation would stick, or more so it's probably the fact that he's in Yuji's body. That just makes a lot of sense. But we have no reason to believe that Sukuna can do anything against this. As for Dio, in Sukuna's Malevolent Shrine, he would have to stop time before receiving an unreasonable amount of cleaves to his body. If Dio loses an arm or something where he can still move around, then he can just drink the blood of Sukuna's and Yuji's body to continue. But if Dio was to lose his legs or something, I can't imagine that he'd be able to continue the fight after, because Sukuna can just continue to slash, especially considering that Dio cannot escape from this 200-meter domain expansion. It's just not possible. And his ability is just completely unreasonable. Oh yeah, you might be asking, what if Sukuna was to use his fire arrow over everything else here? Dio could stop time and move out of the way. Hope that cleared everything up, because that's not really much of a factor. It takes a bit to get going, and that was more so a power move against Jogo. I wouldn't really use that here. Now, currently, it's very possible that Sukuna's strength isn't at Dio's highball level of strength and durability, so maybe Cleave wouldn't work the way that we'd think. But usually I haven't seen a serious Sukuna fail to cleave, but I've seen a certain someone survive a bunch of them fine because I'm caught up with the manga. But at the same time, cleave worked at the end of it. But
In some way, I want to low key read the manga, but it's like I really rather wait till the next season come out because I'm never really in a rush. But like I heard it's busting though. I heard that shit going crazy over there in the manga.
at the same time, again, Maharaga had helped largely. So because of that, it leads me to believe that there's a large possibility that Sukuna's cleaves actually do have like a higher end of possibility, and they just stop at a certain limit. And if that's the case, we can call this battle as good as done, because if there is a limit to the cleave, if there's like a limit of output, then that's just cooked for Sukuna. Because even with a large amount of regeneration, if Dio chooses to blitz Sukuna and in turn end this fight, he'd be very much capable of doing so. But, again, immeasurable amount of cursed energy, and I believe that it's very possible for him to cleave and Dio fairly easy if Dio doesn't choose a lethal option fast enough. And it also banks on the idea that cleave really does work exactly how it's described, and Sukuna can just keep on feeding into it all of his curse energy to eventually work against Dio. But I do think it's safe to say that regarding their capabilities at their current points compared, it leans more to Dio. I do think that we should redo this with the current version of Sukuna in the manga once everything gets wrapped up against a character in JoJo of a similar caliber. I think that'd be a pretty good idea. Thank you all for watching. Join the Discord. Follow me on Twitter if you want to. Until the next one, peace out and Godspeed.
Okay, so from what I got from it, I feel like it's still 50-50. I'm like I said, I would never count my boy out at all. But I'm also not gonna count out Sukuna as well. It's just I don't know. From what I see, I feel like yeah, it could go either way. But I know my nigga Dio, he like to play with his food sometimes. So sometimes that could be his downfall. That's what happened in Stardust Crusade. So I just feel like Dio could possibly get his ass ripped to shreds, but like I said, I'm 50-50, man. Well, tell me what y'all think, man. Me, I'm still gonna say Dio all day. You know how it is. Number one fan. But yeah, man, that was a good one. It's very interesting. Very, very interesting. Shout out Caleb. Have a good one.